بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب زدني علما.
So now the next thing I'll try to quickly give an overview on how the setup. Like just now we have seen the default routing. Default routing is basically used for unknown destinations, like for the internet. This is something what we have seen, where you will be configuring the default route. So if you are trying to implement, let's say if I'm implementing the default routing, how it's going to be in the real scenarios. Now the configuration is simple. You will have a router connecting to the LAN, and you will be using some private network 192.168.1.network with your gateway, and you will be connecting to the ISP. So in my case, I'm using only one ISP, just the ISP. So typically ISP means connecting to the ISP router, let's say, service provider. Okay. Now, again, on the service provider side, how the configuration goes here. So in our case, what we'll do is we'll simply configure the default route towards the service provider, which means I'll go to my router, I'll simply say IP route 0000 the next hop, let's say it is 2.2.2.2, whatever the next hop, we'll add that. And this will simply add a single default route which says that any unknown packet, if someone is trying to go to Yahoo, Google, Gmail, anywhere, it will simply route here. And then the router says, I don't know where they are, but as per my routing table, I'm going to simply use the default route, which will automatically send the packet to the ISP. Okay. Now, again, beyond this point, the ISP should know where is Yahoo server. Again, technically, the ISP is not going to maintain each and every server on the internet. So Yahoo server is somewhere residing somewhere in a different location, maybe in a Mumbai, or the nearest location maybe in Dubai, or maybe in US, whatever the nearest location, it's somewhere connecting to a different service provider, and there are multiple service providers involved over there, right? Now, beyond this point, this my ISP router or my local ISP, of course, it connects to the main ISP. Like I'm taking a local internet connection, and that connection goes from the main provider, let's say Tata, Reliance, or some of the providers. So now, beyond this point, again, what happens, how this router is going to learn the Yahoo server, this part is something taken care by the BGP. Again, when you jump into the BGP section in the CCNP, where we will be seeing also, basically you will understand how the routing works. So which means there is some kind of routing involved, and that routing is done between the service providers, and there is a dedicated protocol called BGP there. Okay. Now, based on that, your service provider will simply route the packet to the Yahoo. Let's say the IP address of the Yahoo is 202.111, and the Yahoo server is going to reply, and your packet will receive back. So the packet is running back. Now, there is one more thing we need to understand. When the packet you're sending with the source address, and the destination is 202.111. That's the destination. So when the packet goes to the gateway, there's also something called NAT, which we'll see again, a NAT separate concept, network address translation. Because technically these are the private IP addresses, and these private IP addresses are not recognized on the internet. So ISPs simply block any packet which is sourced with any private IP range, which is a default rule, because these private IPs should not be sent on the internet, because there will be a conflict and all. So by default, there is a rule which will prevent those routes. So which means when you're sending the packet with a source address 192.168.1.network, when the packet reaches, your source address will change. So there is a NAT configuration, which we'll see again, a NAT and all those things, which will translate to a public IP. Okay, so the source address will change to a public IP, destination address remains the same, and which means your packet is routed to the ISP, the nearest ISP, and from there it try to reach the Yahoo server, whichever is the nearest Yahoo server. And of course, on the internet, there will be more than one server placed on different locations in the form of clusters. So it will try to reach the nearest server, and the nearest server is going to respond back. So when it is responding back, the source address will be 202, and the destination will be like 5111. So again, it will route back. with the help of BGP again. So there is a BGP protocol which is responsible at the back end inside the service provider core and reaches the ISP. And this public IP is globally unique. I hope you know already those concepts. So public IP will be unique, reserved. So based on that, everyone knows where is 5111. It is assigned to this ISP, so it will reach the ISP. It will come back again. And again, the NAT, what it will do, it will again change the source address. Source address will remain the same. Destination will again change back to the private IP, which will route back to the LAN. Okay. So at the end, if you see the routing, in terms of routing between my router and the ISP, there will be a default route, as I said. And when the packet is getting routed up to here, there is a BGP protocol. And when the packet is coming back again, there is a BGP protocol. And from our router to this one, there will be always a static route for the public IP. So the route, in terms of routing, this will leave it as of now. We will cover this in the section BGP. But whereas when you see here, there will be a static route. There is always a static route which is added for the public IP, whichever is reserved for you. And based on this combination of a default route and the public IP, the routing happens between your router and the service provider. And of course, there will be also a NAT, which is going to ensure that your private IP changes to the public IP. And that's how it goes. This is how the routing goes. This is one option. And in some bigger scenarios, you will be using BGP here as well. So if you are working in a bigger production network or a big size company, you will be running a BGP protocol instead of the default combination. So that's an alternative. But in most of the cases, you will run the default routing, static default combinations. The alternative to that is BGP. But again, as I said, we will not cover the BGP at this point. So these are two different concepts. We'll also see the NAT in a NAT section. What is exactly NAT and how exactly it does that.